FaceTime opkald.
Ja.
Kan de høre?
All right. Paula, should we kick it off?
Yeah, we can start.
Okay.
So welcome everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, which is fantastic. Before we begin, let me just say a couple of words on procedure. We've muted all the audience members to minimize any sort of background noise, but we encourage you guys to participate in the chat. Put your questions or any comments over in that section. And at the end of the hour, we'll leave time to try and go through them and have Julia and Benedikt answer whatever you guys want to know. I also want to say a big thank you to Medina Getten, our web and logo designers, and the entire team in Bad Dürkheim for their fantastic work. This episode is supported by BottleStops, the specialist for wine tours in Germany. BottleStops organizes wine tours for interested individuals and also handles trip logistics for professionals and media. Find out more at bottlestops.com. Trink is German for drink, which makes sense given our choice of subject matter. It's also a new publication launching in the fall that aims at nothing less than changing the conversation around and about German-speaking wines, building bridges between the people making the wine and the people drinking. Featuring reporting from world-class journalists on both sides of the equation, narrative essays, interviews, bottle picks, and original photography, we are really trying, or we are planning to try, to communicate the heart and the history of Germany, Austria, Südtirol, and Switzerland, one wine region and one wine story at a time. My name is Paula Rita Sidore. I'm an American wine writer and translator, originally from New Hampshire. I'm based in Germany since 2002. I'm live here in Bad Honnef, Germany, on the 51st parallel, the northernmost edge of wine growing on the Rhine River. I'm also directly across the Rhine, directly across the Rhine sits the tiny and fierce wonder that is the Arth Valley, and it's also the home of tonight's guests.
My name is Valerie Cathola. I am a New York-based writer, also focused on German-speaking wines, Austria, Germany, Südtirol, and German-speaking Switzerland. And I've been drawn to the wines, much like Paula, as much by the culture, history, landscape, and people as by the wines themselves. Today's topic and guests really get to the heart of what we're trying to do with the Trink project, both the magazine and these conversations, in that Julia and Benedikt are some of the top talents in German Pinot Noir. And while they are very well known at home and have been the subject of many articles, and podcasts, and interviews, that doesn't get across to an English-speaking audience as much as it should. So it's our objective to really open that door and break down the language barrier and let people in to know what's going on the ground in Germany from a perspective that you can really only get from insiders. So thank you for joining us today for that. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Julia and Benedikt and ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves. I think as you'll soon understand, they've been called Germany's red wine power couple. They're truly a dynamic duo with a singular focus on Spaetburgunder, or German Pinot Noir. They each pursued their own paths of challenge and exploration, but are, as of quite recently, both back in Dernau in the Ahr for reasons they'll explain to us shortly. Both of them grew up in this cool, tiny, red wine-dominated region, but that was not so long ago regarded as Germany's North Pole for wine. The grape has a long history in the country, but a century ago it was just 2.5% of all plantings. After decades of incremental increase between 1990 and 2010, plantings doubled, and now Germany is the third biggest Pinot producer after Burgundy and Oregon. Julia and Benedikt have some of the keenest insights into what makes Germany so well suited to the grape right now. So thank you both for joining us today. And Julia, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and your connection to Spaetburgunder?
With me or with Benedikt? I didn't understand you, but with me, okay. Yeah, it's nearly the same, I think. Yeah, hello to all of you, and thank you for your invitation first. So it's an honor for us to be here with you this evening and to have the opportunity to tell you something about our German Spaetburgunder. So yeah, as you already heard, my name is Julia. I'm now 30 years old, and I grew up in the small wine growing region R, which is yeah, not only one of the smallest wine growing region, it's one of the wine growing regions in Germany which is specialized on red grape varieties, especially Spaetburgunder. And so I grew up in a small family estate which was founded already in 1910, and I think I can speak for both of us. If you are born in the Ahr Valley, then yeah, you're really influenced by Spaetburgunder from the beginning on. So it's a passion. I think everybody gets yeah, if he grows up here, because there is nearly nothing else than Spaetburgunder in our cool climate region here. And yeah, after I did my apprenticeship in a really well-known estate just around the corner, which is called Meier-Näke, I studied in Geisenheim wine growing and enology. And then I had been the German wine queen, like an ambassador for German wines for 1 year. And after that, I start to, yeah, just in small steps to take over the family estate together with Benedikt.
Yeah, so for me, it's, so the beginning is the same. So I'm also from the Ahr Valley, from, it's only 2 villages beside in Maischoss, but it's another big region. So yeah, as Julia said, it's Pinot Noir is here, what you drink all day. It is what you get when there's a birthday or something in family. It belongs to here. So it's not always a question what you plant, so or what does the other winemakers in here in Ahr. It's very common. So that it's Pinot Noir. And as longer you study or in das heißt, dich im Wein beschäftigst.
Think of wine, work with wine.
Think of wine is one of the best grape varieties that can tell where it comes from and how. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can't. No, there we go.
Can you hear me? Better? Okay. So, short story, it's Pinot Noir can tell best where it comes from and how great the quality is, because it has such a great complexity that is like an open book, and that is sometimes good, sometimes bad, because it tells you not only the positive things, tells you also the bad things, and so it's the biggest challenge for a winemaker, I think. And so that is what heißt mich dabei gehalten hat. What
makes you stay with Pinot Noir?
Yeah, well, that is what that makes me stay with the grape variety. Yeah.
Fantastic. This year was also pretty monumental for you both. We were talking a little bit about this before everybody joined us. What can you fill us in a little bit on some of the changes that have happened for both of you?
So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the connection. I'm so sorry for the connection.
Yeah.
Because of that, we went in, but because we thought it was better here, but we couldn't understand everything of your question now.
I said this year was pretty monumental for you both.
Yeah.
There's something new.
Yeah, that's enough. Yes, there's something new because in 2010, Benedikt bought the estate of the city of Klingenberg in Franken, so which is 240 kilometers far away from our home, let's say. First when we met each other, or when we get a couple, let's say, we worked there together, or we spent sometimes in Klingenberg, and over the weekend, for example, in the Ahr Valley for me. Now we are parents from a small son, and then we decided last year to sell the estate in Klingenberg and to work together in one family estate here in the Ahr Valley. So since April 2020, we are now named Weingut Bertram Baltes, to show that both families are now connected together in one estate here in Dernau. And because we are both born here in the Ahr Valley, and our whole family and friends are located here, we decided to choose the Ahr Valley and leave Klingenberg, but we are still very connected to this place, of course.
It's not an easy step, but it is. It divides you. So you want to make both perfect or in the way you want it, and so that is something you divided. Then came family, and the parents became older here and are, and so it was a decision over a few years. And the first years we say no, we try, we can have both, but with a child and family and everything, that was over the years that we had to do so that everything can develop good. It was important to divide, so make one independent winery at Franken, and I came back to here, and we are from that on here only 4 years, and so it gives us the possibility to bring job and family together, and yeah, bring in a lifestyle that we want for our plants. We want it also for us. So a good that's good
Surrounding.
good surrounding, and so.
Good.
Yeah.
May I just ask you a question, Benedikt? Will you continue to consult for the new Steintal estate, the estate? So you would still be involved in the winemaking there?
Yeah, of course. So there is nothing. It's like it's not an old car you give away. So of course the relationship is strong, and we work together, and it's the whole team, and I am often there, and so it is it's in process. So to make them first independent, that they are going to the practical stuff completely by their own, and then it's easy for me to be there and speak about know-how, development, and all the stuff. And that's the goal for the future, to make them independent for the practical things, and to stay there, stay in connection for support and friendship, of course. So
Fantastic. Julia, Spaetburgunder, what does the name mean? And which clues does it give us to understanding the story of Pinot Noir in Germany? Can you talk a little bit about it for those who don't speak German?
Of course. So if you would translate Spätburgunder into English, it would be late Pinot, let's say, or late Burgundy. So I think it gives already a hint about the ripening period of Spätburgunder. Oh, sorry, was there a question?
No, sorry for the background noise.
Okay, okay, no problem. And Spätburgunder has in Germany already a long history. So we think that monks from Burgundy brought the Pinot Noir or Spätburgunder plants and vines to the Ruhr region or to whole Germany. And I think that we have very, not only similarities to the climate condition and the soil condition like they have in Burgundy, so we have different soils as well, but we have perfect ripening conditions for Spätburgunder. And in the Ruhr Valley, for example, it's more northern than the 50th degree of I don't know how you know what I mean. So normally from school you learn that it's not possible to grow wine over there, but we have such a small valley, and the river is flowing from west to east, so we have very much a southern exposited vineyards, very steep slopes, and we have the slate, which is like a natural food heater, so we have very good climate and soil conditions to grow this grape variety. But to think of whole Germany, we have a huge diversity of different soils, and because of that we have a huge diversity of Spätburgunders as well, because as Benedikt already mentioned, Spätburgunder reflects the soil where it's grown at very well. So Pinot Noir Spätburgunder from Baden will be completely different than the Spätburgunder we cultivate over here. But of course, it's one of our most important grape varieties in whole Germany. So Riesling is the most important. But we are the third largest Spätburgunder producer worldwide. And I think we cultivate in whole Germany 11,000 hectares, so which is quite a lot.
Benedikt, you have pointed out in other interviews that there's sort of a line of latitude at which, or band of latitude at which Pinot grows best around the world. Which parts of Germany does that line of latitude cut through? Which regions are those? And how would you, if you could give a a summary of what the Pinots are like from those regions, just the top 2 or 3. That would help us to understand it a little better.
Yeah, so of course it's often hard to say, but I think the most well-known, of course, is the Dar Valley. It's Baden. It's parts of Franconia, so it's called Kurfranken. And of course, at Pfalz, in northern Pfalz region, there is also a hotspot in the region. Normally, Pfalz is divided in Riesling and different reds, and of course, but there's a northern part of Pfalz, there's also a hotspot. So here are, of course, the wineries like Meier-Näkel or Jean Stodden, or in Franconia, Paul Fürst, or at Pfalz, Knipsers, or Huber in Baden, or Tiereisen, that are very well-known names, make great jobs. Yeah.
Great. Julia, you said that there's no more exciting time. There's never been a more exciting time for Spaetburgunder than now. And Benedikt, you said that Spaetburgunder is in the process of establishing its own identity. And can you each speak to the factors, climate factors, winemaking skill, other things that we might not think about that attribute to that excitement and to that identity, and what you think that identity is?
Yeah.
So I think Spaetburgunder, especially in the Ahrweiler or in whole Germany, had the let's say tough job to do during history or during the last times, because I think there were a lot of German winemakers who were always told that Germany is too cold and too wide up on the north to make very good red wines, and because of that they thought, okay, we will do everything to show the whole world that we have the possibility to make red wines, which meant that they had a lot of alcohol, a lot of oak, a lot of new barrels they used, a lot of ripeness inside. So it was full of everything. But because of that, Spaetburgunder lost its identity, because Spaetburgunder is a very elegant and filigrane grape variety, and with too much alcohol and too much wood and everything, it's not elegant anymore. It's just you can get it with a different grape variety from southern regions, much cheaper and easier. So I think that there was a completely change, that the winemakers in Germany recognized that we have perfect ripening conditions because of our cool climate, that our wines are brilliant because of a low alcohol content, a crisp acidity structure, a good minerality, and that they are now more self-confident to show our strengths, and not to cover maybe things we don't have or we are not good in. So I think because of that, now Spaetburgunder in Germany is really made completely different. So more focusing on the strength of Spaetburgunder.
So maybe it's more easy to explain when you think on German Riesling. So you have German Rieslings that had 12 or 12.5 volume percent, can be one of the greatest wines in the world. Long complexity, everything what a wine needs with 12 or 12.5, can age 50, 60, 70 years. And this is very special because the wines live not from alcohol or wood, they live from the soil, from the minerality here, from the energy in the wines. And that is the same what gives the quality to a good Pinot Noir from Germany, I think. And this was how you explained the learning process, because on Germany, everyone was proud and nobody had the idea to say, oh, there were some bigger California Chardonnays, so we now had to make Riesling with 14.5 volume percent. So because everyone was proud, it was tradition, so it is like it is. And in red, there were also a tradition in Germany for Pinot Noir, so that is a few hundred years old, and these wines are great. But in the 60s, 70s, they start big production in red, and so in the 90s came the German red wonder, they called it, around like that. And so for me, it goes in 3 steps. So the first one was show him that we can do red wine. And the second one, we are lucky to finish it now, it was a time we do it, everyone we do it like the French. So we buy French clones, French barrels, do everything what the French do, and then we say, look, it is nearly as good as the French one. So, and of course, that is not a way to copy someone. And now it is more self-confident, more creativity, and more originality to the styles, to the Pinot Noirs, and that goes no more to that what we also can show with the Rieslings from Germany. Bigger barrels, longer time on the yeast, not overripe, fine, crisp, as usual, with a lot of energy, with ageability, more fine structure, and I think this is something could be a typically German Pinot Noir that divided us from the other ones. Yeah.
Before we go ahead, I was just going to ask quickly. I know we said we weren't going to take audience questions, but we have a really good one that I think fits right in here from Jerome, and he's saying, aren't the Ahr and Mosel quite similar in soil and climate? Why did the Ahr go so strongly for Pinot Noir and Mosel to Riesling? Do you have some thoughts about that?
Yeah, we're asked that often, because it's really nearby. I think yeah, but I think I always say that I'm always a friend of. For me, it shows that over hundreds of years, everyone tried this and this, and at the Ahr, it became to Pinot Noir, and at Mosel to Riesling, because I can only that it is more years were good for that grape variety here, and at the Mosel were more vintages good for that grape variety, because there 100 years ago they had not a strategy or marketing or anything, or someone who said now we do it that way. It came because it ripens more vintages good than the other grape varieties. So they did ones go that way and the other go that way.
I think the only difference between the two wine growing region, or the most important difference for me, is that the Mosel is a bigger river and they have much more influence from the river, like we have here from our small river Ahr. So during harvesting period, for example, they have much more humidity like we have here, and they have fog.
Yeah, more fog, yeah.
Nebel, richtig?
Yeah,
fog.
fog.
Yeah. During the morning. And for Riesling, of course, it's okay if you want to have something noble rot, for example. So you need some botrytis and so on. But for our Pinot Noir, it's important to keep everything healthy. And we don't have this high humidity here. So I think this is one of the most important differences in climate. But of course, it's much more because of the tradition and because of the knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this brings me to my next question, which is, Benedikt, you had talked about these 3 stages of knowledge, right, going through with Spaetburgunder. But we're almost in a 4th one right now, where everybody wants these live, lean, elegant, beautiful, beautiful wines, and yet the climate is pushing us back to what was in the 90s, these super heavy concentrated. I mean, I know in the Ahr Valley, people had just started to really understand the idea of canopy management and of cutting the leaves away. And last year was an absolute devastation because of the heat. So what do you think is the future for Pinot Noir in Germany, but also specifically in the Ahr Valley, which has my heart?
Yeah, it's of course it is what you say, but when we look that Ahr in Germany is one of the northest wine growing, coolest wine growing area we have in the world, and we have the Pinot Noir. So it's I always say, when it is too hot at Ahr Valley to make Pinot Noir, then we can
forget about Pinot Noir.
Forget the rest of Pinot Noir, or could do it only in Norway, because we have such all options left. All other ones are finished with, so we can go from step to step to the south of Europe in the hottest areas of Spain, and can look, and there we see our future. What we can do in vineyards, to go that way. So cutting leaf walls, going not on the hottest places, going more in the side ways of the valley. And when you doing when you see the river on the card, they flowing from west to east. So one side is a south side, and the other one is a north side. And in the Middle Age, at 1700, there was a very warm period, and there were both sides on were planted. So when everything, when really, when you go hiking, you see everywhere the walls are also there, and the R is not only stopped at Altena, that goes a little bit higher to that Quelle, to the fountain. So we are here in the beginning of thinking about being warm. So we have so much options in the vineyard to do it. It is more here and more development. So I think we have all options, and we are now at the point that in every vineyard is it possible to get the perfect ripeness. Of course, we have in the best vineyards with low yield and everything, it can be going to overripe, but that's not normal to any corner of the art. So it is in the head and what you want, and is winemaking. So there's a lot of things people cannot imagine it can work. So the leaf wall only half, or going other ways, or when I first go to Portugal, I was going to vineyard and said, when we start to putting leaves out, and they look at like I am crazy or a freak, because no one do leaves out. So when I was young, and at the R, there's not they cannot imagine that all the leaves are here. The most people here cut all the leaves from the grapes, and then they hang with, when they are black, it's like a black car. They hang in the sun at 35 degrees. The sun from the slate returns from up, and that small valley, they are 50 degrees. So there's always an option to get overripe berries, but it is much easier to protect it from overripe. So it is. I see we are at the beginning, so it's not there anything else started now. Yeah.
So there's no plans to leave Pinot Noir behind. It's more a question of figuring out how to work with it. But that's wonderful. Another question, thinking about specifically the R. Pinot is legendarily terroir transparent. And here I have to tell a little story. Benedikt, one of the very first times I tasted your wines in Mainz, I will never forget it, because I tasted it and I knew you were from Franken, but I didn't know your history. And I tasted it, and it brought me immediately back to the R Valley, and it brought me specifically to Marcadonoir, which I had tasted before and fallen in love with. And I remember I said that, and you gave exactly that laugh, because I said, I can't explain why, but it reminds me of the R Valley. It reminds me of Adenauer, and you started smirking and said, yeah, really? So on the one hand, Pinot is transparent. On the other hand, there was something in the wines that you were making in Franken that nonetheless were showing your art roots. What is it, do you think? How much of the role does terroir play? How much of the role does the hand or the signature of the winemaker play? Because you really have both there, and that's what I find so fascinating.
Yeah, I think I always say the same answer. The terroir is like the bones in your body. So when you are that high and have that bones, then you can eat a lot and you become a little bit more wild or muscles. But you have always the same bones. So, and that is the differences. So what is there, and you cannot bound it or something like that. It breaks when you bound it. So you can, of course, you can make it more strong, or but it is, when you have that genetic and the bones, it is the terroir. And of course, you can do like, for example, in Franconia, you can try to make a Schlossberg and heavy heavy, fruity, juicy Pinot Noir, but it will not happen. Because they are very straight and elegant and energized. So there's after unripe, ripe, came overripe, but not fat or juicy. So it is you learn over terroir, because you do it 1 or 2 times and then you see there's no chance to bound, it breaks, and then you go as a winemaker with that direction of the terroir.
Okay.
That happens most.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Paula, did you have something more to add?
Nope, go ahead.
What role do you think clones play in the specific identity of the Pinots you make and of Spaetburgunder generally? Because I think you both work with some very old clones, some Julia that your grandfather planted, and some specific to the R, some Swiss, some French. Can you talk a little bit about that and the physical structure of those grapes and why they might give a different character to the wines?
Yeah, of course. So we, as we already mentioned, we are really lucky that we have the opportunity to work with a lot of old vines because of the family roots. The estate was founded in 1910, and my grandfather planted a lot of only German clone material, let's say, and we have some vineyards where originally R clones are located, so like a Stuber clone, which was just a natural mutation because of the climate condition here in the Ahr Valley. And my father, he was really experimental, let's say. So he planted a lot of different clones, most of the time German clones, but some Swiss clones as well. And for us, it's quite interesting to have different clone material because we are so specialized on one grape variety. And of course, you see a difference inside the clones, but we recognize for ourselves that the older the vines get, the less influence they are by the clones. So because the older they get, the grape material is getting more similar together because the yield is going down and the berries are getting smaller, and so the influence of the vineyard side is much more intense, like the clone material. But of course, if we plant now clones, we tried some differences, and our dream for the future is that we can have our own clone material, let's say. So we want to go inside our oldest parcels and cut some wood over there, and then bring it to Geisenheim to make to graft it and to plant it, to replant it here. So that would be great because we think that this is really unique if it's so adapted to the climate condition and to the soil condition over, let's say, 50 or 60 years in the Ahr Valley here. And for us, the most important clone is a Rita clone, which is a typical German clone. And the grapes, they are getting very compact, very dense together. And they always have a very good acidity structure, and they can keep the acidity quite good, which is important for our wines, of course. So I think this is the clone which we have most planted, which is most planted in our estate.
Right. I think it's a little bit better to explain or understand when I always see it like a wheel from clones. So it is like, an aroma wheel. It has in this corner that Eigenschaften.
Characteristics.
What?
Characteristics.
Characteristics, yeah.
So,
exactly the same word.
Okay. And so on that wheel, maybe have on that side you have good for working in vineyard because they are not compact and easy to handle. And on the other side, late ripening and early ripening, and small berries and big berries. So and in that wheel, it is more, you can say, the French are more at aroma and more compact, and the newer German clones are more because all Germans are engineers. Everything was made to fit it in work. So the grapes are very loose and very small, and they have all technically one round a gram more acidity also, but they are always that they're very similar. So when you try one, for example, they call it a small berry clone from Geisenheim, we call it. And when you try it first, like, oh, good Pinot Noir, it's dark in acidity. And you try it next year, say also, good, it's very good Pinot Noir. And it is very similar. And the older clones, they are more compact, in the berry, in the bunch, it is more cool. So there are more fresh aroma. It is finer. The skins are more fine. That helps you to make more finer wines, because that is something that divides the development of clones. When you want to have it easy with the Pinot Noir, you're going on a thick skin, but that gives you a lot of tannins, and that makes lose your elegance in time. So, and the most difficult way to cultivate a Pinot Noir is a Pinot Noir with a small skin, with a thin skin, and so that ones go in the direction for more technically, going to a loose bunch, small berries, and everything like that. And the French or the old German clones that are similar, but the newer French ones are so much, or most times, so much better than German, because they stay focused on quality in wine and not in how to handle in vineyards. And now also in Germany, there's development for the clones. But for me, it is a wheel. We're going not from past to future. We're going a little bit forward. Then so it depends on what is now what you want. So there is not a steady development like cars. You say, oh, they became always better and anything. That is a wheel. So, and how you are pointed on the wheel. So because of that, we work with different clones from everywhere. So that isn't always a mixture or a masala or anything. So that the terroir is not broken. It's always focus on terroir, and the rest is what fits best to the needs or aroma in terroir. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Short.
That, I think that takes us directly to the next question, which is, if you're working with these very tight clustered, thin-skinned clones, and you are now attempting organic farming in these steep terraces where it's 100% handwork and these very sensitive grapes, how are you managing that?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that especially in the steep slopes, you are very close to organic farming from the beginning on, because you do so many steps by hand. And so for me, the most important thing to keep the grapes healthy is a good canopy management. And of course, if you do it by hand with a good team, then the canopy management is much better organized than if you drive by with machines where it's sometimes a bit too full and too many leaves, and so that the humidity is kept inside. So that is for us the most important thing, to have a good canopy management, that humidity is not inside. And the second thing is of course that the temperatures and the climate conditions during the last years were good to work organic, because we didn't have that much rain during summertime, so we had a lot of very dry years. So for us it was to be honest no big challenge to turn now to organic farming, but of course if you have already done a lot of steps by hand, because we are not able to do that much with machines to cultivate the, let's say, grass, or to keep the grass low, so we have to mow sometimes, extra work to do, but it works quite well.
Right.
Yeah. No, you hear us.
Can you hear us again?
Yep, we can hear you. Fine. So let's talk. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, sometimes.
Yes, now we go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no.
Perfect.
I hear you.
Okay, so that takes us into the cellar, I think both of you are extremely particular about the winemaking itself. This is something that you think a lot about in terms of cooperage and whole cluster and cold soak and many, many steps along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And I'm particularly interested in your decisions about whole cluster, because I think it adds a whole nother level of character to the wine. Either one of you can start. Well, did we lose them again?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, the connection was again not that good, but I think it is about winemaking.
It is about winemaking, yes.
And yeah, and I hear a whole bunch. I hear it's important.
As part of it and among the
Yeah.
other aspects.
Yeah, so there's also development, and some of what impressed me most, or what the development is was geprägt, most
Characterized by?
yeah, most characterized by last year. When you go to German school and study there, they say to you, so a good red wine is long time on the yeast, is heavy and full-bodied. So that you learn in school, nobody tell you something different, you go home and do it like that. So, but with Pinot Noir, it is completely different. And that was the most amazing development, is that you see, as finer you work, as bigger or more complex, greater is the wine. So you start from that, you learn in school and everyone else do it, and then you expect how great wines can be when they had the most fine treatment is possible. Often people ask me a little bit about idols or something like that, and the most are in white or in Riesling, and we are proud on our Blanc de Noirs. So because of sometimes you have bottles from Mosel, they are 50 years old, the cork is broken, it's half, the bottle is only half full, the wine is perfect. You drink a glass to it 14 days in the fridge, wine is also okay. So, and you have other wines, you think, oh, what a big red wine, 14 and a half. So, and after 5 years, the biggest bottle, the best cork, the wine is done. So what happens in between, or what is the difference? And in Pinot Noir, we see it indirectly in looking on the Blanc de Noir, like Champagne, good Blanc de Noir, also Pinot Noir. They have perfect acidity structure and ripe like a Riesling about being fine. Not so many extraction, not so many tannins, not overripe. And so the winemaking is impressed of that, being timeless. So, and that you go the way, not too late harvesting. We make only a few days cold soak. So like it is originally, and it came from cold harvesters. The grapes were such cold, it not started directly to ferment. It's the same we do, only we have not the possibility to have it such cold. We go in the morning, but it's also not that cold that it stands for 3 or 4 days. But we do the same. We do it one time cold, and then it develops slowly to the point it starts fermenting. So we do it not 5 days really cold and then push it high. It goes normal development. We're going in bigger barrels or fermenters so that they can temperature. But we stopped a few years. We stopped stamping. It's only remontage. And the next step was to become more fine, was bringing some whole bunch in, not to have tannins. We layer it in the mash so that the mash cake is more stable and not break when we pump over. So, and that's it will be so tight that it filters the juice in whole when we pump it over, and then we do maximum 1 time a day, depends. And then pressing depends on the year. We have years like 18 with only take out wine what comes from the zone, and press only to 0.2 one time, and let's stay it on the press. Like they all had in the history, they had only that press one time, and it stands for a long time. You don't have to stand it for that long time, but of course we press after that a little bit higher, but that with is down. It goes
so we divide it into different quality levels.
Yeah, and
so
the press go always one step down from a Grand Cru to a Village, for example, because in a Village it is a bigger amount of wine, and in that it gives a little bit more structure, but it had not the influence like in a Grand Cru where it makes a bigger part. And so it goes always one step down to have the most finest for Grand Cru. And this we do it such strong beginning of 17, 18, 19, 20, yet now these vintages are very impressed of this logic, because from 2010 started it back on, the development was all in every year. You cannot believe that you can go more finer, because what you get in your head in school, the wine have to be big and powerful, and it can never be too schwach,
Weak.
Yeah, so too small or unripe, and so I cannot believe myself, and so it goes from time to time. And now we are on a point where we do the wines also after that treatment, also in bigger German barrels. So in this year we have only one new 300 liter, and everything else is minimum 600 liters. So we do minimum 600 liters of each Grand Cru, from other ones more, of course. But 600 is the half piece, we call it in Germany. Is also a size of a barrel that ripes the wine very slowly. So we give after 1 year or 1.5 years, first time a little bit sulfur, and the wines are more stable than we do it 6-7 years ago with double amount of SO2.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. That actually, speaking of aging, that brings me to my next question. Julia, you've said that nothing fascinates you more than a mature Spaetburgunder. What are the qualities or some of the producers that you admire? What do you do in your vineyards and your cellar to build wines that meet this vision of yours? Obviously, when a winemaker admires something or someone, you're going to work your wines to meet that vision. What do you do that maybe wasn't done before?
Yeah, I think we already mentioned a few things. So I think the most important thing is to harvest very fresh and alive grapes, so that acidity structure is kept inside. So we try not to make our picking time fixed because of the amount of sugar or something else. We just go inside the vineyards and taste the wines, the grapes, and look how they look like, so that they are still very fresh and well structured. That we don't have any raisins, raisins, right? So that they are still alive. I think this is the most important thing, because if you harvest grapes which are fresh, like with fruits, or like with marmalade, if you harvest very fresh fruits and you have a crisp acidity structure, what is for me the most important thing to age, then they will have a great aging potential. Second thing is, together with the early harvesting period, our Pinots have got quite low alcohol content, and I think we already mentioned the winemakers which are producing Riesling, so it doesn't have to be a high alcohol content. So I think wines with a lower alcohol content, with a crisp acidity, they have a very good aging potential. And then, like Benedikt mentioned, now that we try to make them very elegant and very pure, so don't have this much tannins, with this much tannins inside, so very focused on the elegance, which which brings us sometimes to say that we are producing like red Rieslings. So I know that there is a great variety which is called Roter Riesling in Germany. We don't talk about that. So we think about yeah, like the brother and sister, like that Spaetburgunder is like the red pendant or sister of a Riesling, because yeah, there are many similarities.
Fantastic.
Paula, did you have another question along those lines, or would we like to open up? We have several questions from our audience that we should just save a little time for.
Will do. Will do. This is a question for both of you. What do you want for people to take away when they have a bottle of your wine? Is there something specific that you're looking to capture? A characteristic of the vineyard, a characteristic of the estate? Julia, I know that you've talked about you want each bottle to be authentic, to represent a vintage, a place, and a person. You want a little bit of you in each bottle. What is the common thread that you're looking for in your wine when you say, that's it? This is the point at which I want a bottle. What is that common thread that works its way through all your wines? And the same for you, Benedikt.
So I think for me it's a bit like that we fill our home and our surrounding into bottles, and for me the unique thing about Pinot Noir or Spaetburgunder in the Ahr Valley is a combination of Schiefer and Spaetburgunder, so slate together with Spaetburgunder, and I think that we have this you know, this combination shows yeah, a good juiciness and some herbal notes and a good minerality structure as well. So this is if you think about aromas, and for me the most important thing is that if people have the bottle in their hand, that they think about our region, that they maybe think about the steep slopes, that they yeah, think about the work we are doing with passion here, and the most important thing is that they want to empty the bottle so that it takes yeah, just fun, and that they recognize that it was for us a passion to bring our home maybe a step closer to them, and we talked about that, I don't know, a few weeks ago, that we think that maybe in 10 or 20 or 30 years, some families, they open up a book with a lot of pictures inside from the kids and from a time they spent together. And I think we open bottles from different vintages, because I think with every vintage we will think about yeah, the year, what we have done over there, and what happened during this year. And so it's like our own yeah, photo album,
Yeah.
books of photographs, let's say, yeah, with all these things we worked for in 1 year, and yeah, we what happened in 1 year.
I think I didn't understand the question.
Jetzt auch mit meiner Antwort nicht.
Okay. What is the common thread that works its way through your wines? What is the thing that you're looking for? Rote Faden.
Can you please explain it short in German?
Rote Faden. What
okay.
Yeah, in German you say a red thread. Sorry, I use the English expression. You say a common thread in English.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what is the thing that unifies your entire wines? What are you looking for as a winemaker, where you say, this is what must be in my wine for it to be a success?
Yeah, so I think for me really it's ageability. Yeah? So because it's so much work, and when I think, it reminds me now, I think about it, and when I think about what we speak the last hour, it was what happened in Germany. There was always too much in the wines. It was not too less. So everything was too much. And for me, it is ageability needs, how can I conserve it? So because no vintage, no wine comes a second time. Every wine is a new, unique wine. And for me, it's how I can bundle it and yeah, gives them a long life. It is not that everything set under that, but I think it is so much work, and I have a good discussion last time about wines that are called nature wines, because what we are doing, you can sell as nature wine. It's everything what we are doing, everything is spontaneous fermented, unfiltered, and organic farmed and hand harvested, and everything is in common. But I don't like that that word, because from that point you go in the vineyard and touch a grape. It is not nature; it's culture. So, and from that on, you have was heißt Verantwortung? Responsibility. It's like eating meat. So you have an animal that you have to respect and treat it well, and try to make the best from it. And some nature is meant I harvest the grapes, and then the winemaker calls himself a nature winemaker, said, no, it's nature again. I bring the grapes here, and now it's nature again. And in my opinion, it's a culture, and you have the responsibility to treat it well. You take something out from nature, or you take it to you, and so because of that, you have to treat it well and bring the most joy effect to someone else. So to give it, was heißt weiter? Give it ahead.
Yeah.
Give it ahead. So because of that, I also want to have it protected. So not pump it over the air, because it have somebody wants that it have to taste 6 months after harvesting, or the market wanted. So to fix it and conserve it and do something great, and something that had a longer life, had something that a longer period that can make fun to the people. And so there's what Julia said, their own rememberings, or what is Erinnerungen? Memories in it, and so that is, I think, so really in my heart there's something really important, what leads me. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Both of you, you're talking, Julia, about bringing drinkability. You were saying before that the drinkability, the ability to enjoy it is one of the key things for you, and you're talking about ageability, and put that together, and to my mind, you sort of do have the perfect wine then. Fantastic.
Yes, it's in Pinot Noir, Champagne, or good Chardonnays. There's not a problem. Bring it together. Good drinkability and a long aging time, because there are all wines that are not that high in alcohol or needed a handbook. You can drink it as good fine wines without a meal, and it can arrive very long. So that is, I think it's very good to bring it together. It's always that what, often it is the effect. When you make for a Pinot Noir, what is a good drinking Pinot Noir? Not that much alcohol, very fine, good fresh fruit, and so that is everything what helps you in ripening. So there's
fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is wow, that's fantastic. Good. I think we want to try and leave a few minutes now to answer some of the questions. It's been very busy. I've been sort of seeing it out of the corner of my eye.
I'll try to squeeze as many in as we can. We are close to the end of the hour. I know it's getting late in Germany, but to summarize, David asks if you think that Germany can be a stylistic leader for Pinot Noir.
Stylistic leader and stylistisches Vorbild for Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
I think we already talked about. I read already that he asked that Wolfgang Hiele and Barbara Huber are told that they tried to make some Burgundy Pinots or Spaetburgunder, but I don't think that they want to, let's say, copy Burgundy. I think a lot of people talking about Burgundy style. So they in Burgundy, for me, they produce very authentic wines, which reflects their soil and the climate conditions they have over there. And I think, the excellent winemakers in Germany, they try to make it similar in Germany, let's say, so that our Pinot Noirs, our Spätburgunder reflect our soil and our tradition of winemaking. So we don't need to buy French oak to produce our Spätburgunder. We can do it with the German oak as well, but without doing like a style like they do in Burgundy. So ageability, let's say, very fresh wines, a very elegant structure. So I think that we talk about similar adjectives without losing our own face and our own signature, let's say, or characteristic in the wines.
Excellent. We also have a question of whether you plan to join the R7.
Yeah.
So there is a, you mean a VDP, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
So there is in the rules of the VDP, there is one rule, one sentence is you have to be a Erzeugerabfüller. That means filling on domain, or what is?
I think the main point is that you need your own domain, your own estate, and at the moment.
At first, we need a domain.
Yeah. And
then we will see.
Yeah. We didn't thought about that in detail at the moment. So for us at the moment, the most important step was to bring everything back home and to do our certification for organic farming, and then maybe for the future, so step by step.
Right. Edwin asks, if you found a great new clone, would you replace current clones or find a better new vineyard planted to those?
So I think now, I don't know. So last year was one of the first time that we have changed Pinot Noir vineyard. So Harry?
Yes.
So, but normally we don't. So Markus Molitor from Mosel always say he is a friend of what is unendlicher Weinbau oder ewiger Wein, never ending vineyard. That means he plays the wines get broke or die. He replant that single one, and so he always said when you treat the vineyards good, the average is old. When you treat the vineyards bad, it is less. So so we have last year where one vineyard we replaced, but I cannot remember when there was the last time out of that. So we don't do that. So because no clone is so good, so strong that you replace an old one. So it is Portuguese. There is not German grape variety. There is always known as big grapes and ordinary wines. But when they are 40, 50 years old, they can hit or can be better as any young Pinot Noir. Doesn't matter which clone. So the age of the wine is very much more strong than any differences in clone. And so I always say, last sentence to that because that's important, as older the wines get, as harder it is to say which clone in wine. So they lose their characteristics over the decades. So 40, 50, 60, 70 years, it is much more how they are treating it, in which soil they are, and everything. And so this is much more important than the clone. Yeah.
Interesting. And Niels asks, how do you adapt your winemaking each year? For example, cooler years versus warmer years.
winemaking in cooler years or versus
Okay.
warmer years. Yeah, for example, if we go for your interest for the whole bunches, we did a higher amount in the warmer years. And of course, we try to adapt our canopy management a bit in warmer years to cooler years. But so normally during the last years, there wasn't that big differences during the grape growing, let's say, because of the temperature or the climate conditions. It was, yeah.
But it's not that much we change.
No.
Because the goal is always the same, and we have in every year you have every challenge. So you have warmer vineyards, cooler vineyards. So in every year we are doing that. So it's only a little bit more in that year or less, but it's not that. Yeah. But I read here something from chaptalization. I can say this is something we never will do.
No, we stop with chaptalization in 2016. So this was the first vintage where we didn't chaptalize anymore. And of course, there are differences in the alcohol content because of the vintages. Yeah, we don't want to go back to chaptalization. So we will work with the alcohol content we get, but we'll see how it will develop during the next years. So for example, our Gutswein, so the entry level Spaetburgunder was with 11.5% of alcohol or 12, so really, let's say low if you think of a dry red wine. But yeah, we think that chaptalization brings a lot of sweetness into the wines we don't want to add. And of course, we want to show them as pure and as natural and authentic as possible. And yeah, the most authentic way is to keep just the natural sugar content from the grape.
All right, I know I see the list goes on and on, but I think we have to slowly say goodbye. Paula, do you want to bring us out here?
I will. Thank you so much, Julie and Benedikt, for coming by, for talking with us. Thank you so much to our audience for tuning in. Without you, we're just voices on the screen. This episode, as all past episodes, are recorded and will be available on YouTube on the Trink Magazine website. Our next episode and our last episode for the summer, we're going to take a short break while we put together the magazine. That's all. So our last episode will be next week. It will take place on Thursday, July 30th, and we'll be talking about, we'll be back to white wine in Germany, but not Riesling, everything but Riesling. So we're going to be looking at Silvaner, we're going to be looking at Scheurebe, but we're going to have a lineup of a couple of great guests. And so tune in at that point. As always, come and visit the website and leave your email, and we can keep you up to date on the various happenings as we get closer to our launch. So thank you once again, everybody. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And I'll come across the river and visit soon.
Yeah, perfect.
Bye.
Soon. Bye bye.